Good evening from London, wrestling fans. I'm your host, Ben Allison, and you are listening to Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast, your one-stop shop for professional wrestling, insight, news, and reviews on a daily basis. And it's Monday. You know what that means. It means it's time for Mailbag Monday, where we answer the questions that you guys have submitted via our Instagram stories. But it also means it's the start of a new week. The weekend is over. The weekend was terrible. Arsenal lost. The Chiefs lost. And I was fuming. Talking about the Chiefs losing. Clark, how are you feeling today on this fine Monday? How are you?
I'm feeling good, although I will say Kadarius Toney did get robbed. Everybody gets a warning to step back off of the line of scrimmage there. While he did line up in the neutral zone, the lateral play out of Kelsey will never get old. That was outstanding. In my eyes, we won the game anyway, and this is one of those things that's just going to light a fire under the Chiefs. Headed into the playoffs, and I cannot wait to see an angry Patrick Mahomes sling that thing around the yard like we all know he can. I will say, though, the Jayhawks did get the win over the Missouri Tigers as usual. So that did help my attitude headed out of the weekend personally. On top of that, we had a really fun NXT deadline show. We've got a lot of wrestling news headed into the holidays. Yes, we don't have a PLE or a PPV or a pay-per-view or whatever you'd like to call it for the rest of the year. But what we do have is CM Punk in the news. We've got AEW to talk about the collision stuff. We aren't gonna, not the collision stuff, I'm sorry, the Continental Classic stuff. We aren't going to address that one necessarily today, but we have a lot of great wrestling to discuss, and it's just a fun time to be a wrestling fan right now. We're headed directly towards Mania season. It doesn't get much better.
Well, for the most of that intro, you mentioned everything we're not going to talk about today, but you did then mention the road to WrestleMania, and we will be talking about that one. In fact, we've got a very fun discussion planned for that one. But first, let me introduce the head of opinions here at Wrestling Republic, Anthony Ricciardi. Anthony, how are you today?
Doing all right. It's rare that I do a Monday, so I'm looking forward to answering some questions and covering what we do, which is talk wrestling.
Absolutely. It's going to be a fun one. It always is. We've got a comment here from Bobby Petito, whose question we will be answering later on. But Bobby is saying Trent Seven got signed to Impact Wrestling this past weekend. Yes, he did. And I'm really happy to see him back on, on I guess the big stage once again. It's going to be very fun to see what's going on over at TNA in the next few months. But last but certainly not least, Bret Sternberg. Bret, how are you today?
Great. This weekend has been amazing, actually. I hope everyone's having a great weekend. My Jets won yesterday. Thank goodness. The Yankees got Juan Soto, and hopefully we're going to get Yamamoto. Hopefully, I'm crossing my fingers. Michigan is doing, since you guys are bragging about all your sports teams, I'm going to go ahead and get it out there. Michigan's doing amazing in football. The Rangers are undefeated in hockey, or were undefeated in hockey. We're having a great time here in New York. Well, down in Florida from New York, in New York sports. But in general, let's just have a good show.
I thought...
Shout out Big Blue, number one in the land, by the way, too. I got a soft spot for the Big Blue. I like Michigan.
I thought for a second, Bret, you were on about the Scottish football team Rangers, and I almost respected it for a second, but nope, you want about some other Rangers in some other sport. I've only just got my head around American football.
There's probably Rangers in every sport.
Yeah, you got Texas in baseball. You
Yes.
got Rangers in Scotland, and then you also got the New York Rangers. The New York Rangers are the good ones.
There you go.
Which one came first? That's all I'll say on the matter, and I don't
Probably
know the
the soccer
answer, so
team.
I do imagine so. But now let's just jump into
Do
Mailbag
they play at
Monday,
the
shall
Garden
we?
though? I'm
They
kidding.
I bet they played in somebody's garden early on. But let's just jump straight into things, and let's talk about a question from at the unmatchable one Mika on Instagram, who is asking, what is the best WWE return in the company's history? This is a fascinating question, and of course, this question stems from the polls we are currently doing on our Instagram stories, where we are asking you guys to vote on the best WWE return of all time. Now, I'm going to get to mine in just a little bit, but before I do, Clark, what about you?
So if it's a returning match, the unsanctioned match.
No,
between
it's
Shawn
no.
It's a
returning moment.
Wait a minute. Can I even say?
No.
Shawn Michaels match against Triple H at SummerSlam is the best returning match ever. And now I get that the return happened beyond that. We're just talking specific returns. If that's the case, I am hard pressed to go against Edge's entrance at Houston at what used to be known as Minute Maid Park, a baseball stadium, coming out of the dugout, hitting the pyro, hitting Metalingus. I'm hard pressed not to say that's the best one. It was on fire. And it was oddly the last show before the pandemic started. So it made
True.
it even more special in some ways. In that regard, I have to go with that one. The pop was ballistic. And I think it was one of the most well hidden returns outside of a few others of late. I was shocked that I went with a return that was this recent personally, but
Yeah.
like in my eyes, hard to deny how big of a deal that was and just how big Houston and the what used to be known as the Astrodome popped for that return. That was electric.
I'll never forget, right? Because I was still in sixth form during 2020 during this Royal Rumble. And I remember I had to be up early, so I waited until the morning to watch the Royal Rumble. It was like 6 a.m. I turned it on, I was watching it. I was like half asleep still. And that theme hit. And like for like half a second, I was like, whose theme is this? Like cause I was so tired, I just couldn't put it together. And then the second I put it together, I pretty much jumped out of bed. I was awake. Yeah. I was jogging around the house. I woke the neighbors up, but no, honestly, it was absolutely crazy. Such a great return, great shout there, Clark. I mean, it does feel like quite a few of the best returns have been in the last, decade, I guess, or slightly over a decade. Because, yeah, I mean, that one was absolutely nuts. But, I mean, what about you, Anthony? Of course, you're on Throwback Thursday. You're the Throwback Thursday guy. What is your, favorite return or the best return in WWE history?
Of course, my throwback partner would steal mine. I was leaning towards, for me, greatest return, I'm thinking just run. So I immediately think Shawn Michaels. He left the business. He was a Hall of Fame caliber wrestler, left due to a bad back, came back and had another Hall of Fame run. But if we're talking just a return that came out of nowhere, even as great as Edge's was, there were rumblings that he was getting tested, possibly getting cleared. Prior to that, I mean, no one expected him to come back. I'd go Christian. No one had any speculation that Christian was coming back. And arguably, he's probably having his best run of his career. Granted, it's in AEW, but no one expected him to come back. No one expected that. And that moment of him and Edge hugging in the ring last time, in WWE, at least for now.
I really wish there was a crowd there. I mean, obviously now in AEW, he's in front of, big crowds, but I really wish, obviously, 2021,
Mhm.
It was just unfortunate because that pop would have just been another level. Because you are right, that was a great return, a return people didn't expect.
There was no speculation. There was no. I don't recall seeing anything leading up to it in the dirt sheets, even hinting at a possibility of him coming back. Edge, there were rumors prior to it,
Yeah.
but Christian, there was nothing.
Yeah. No, I mean, you are right, and I feel like it'll always be an underrated one because it was happened during the pandemic. But no, you are absolutely right on that. It was a huge shock. What about you though, Brett? What do you think the best return is in WWE history? Are you muted, Brett?
Good old mute button. In WWE history, I'm gonna have to agree with Clark and say Edge, but I'm gonna have to say my second on that list that we have for people to vote for would have to be Cody, because the pop, and yeah, I know this is gonna get some people rumbling right now too. The pop, the unexpectedness, obviously people did expect it and didn't expect it at the same time, but like the same music, the pyro, everything, it was just amazing. And you want to talk about like an historic entrance, that's going to be in top 10 probably forever. So that is one of mine personally, but one of my personal favorites, which isn't really like they didn't really return or anything. It was NWO at No Way Out. Love that when they did the takeover. That was classic for me. I was always a big NWO guy, but one of the most underwhelming was this guy right here. And unfortunately, he's on that list as well. And so, yeah, that's my answer.
No, you are right. For those audio listeners, the guy on his shirt is Bret Hart. I mean, yeah, it was unfortunately, it wasn't really, the way they did it wasn't really surprising. It was a bit of a letdown. Obviously, he couldn't really compete because of his age and all of that. And it just unfortunately wasn't the moment. I feel like a lot of wrestling fans did, really hope that it could be.
Too late.
Yeah, exactly. Too little, too late. For me personally, it's Shawn Michaels' crown jewel. No, I'm only joking. It's actually a tough one, and I'm gonna be honest. I was thinking about it, long and hard. The Rock, I think 2011, 2012. That for me was very big because I was a young kid. I don't know if it was speculated on or even announced ahead of time. It might have been, but I remember that Monday Night Raw. I did not expect it. I
didn't expect it either. Yeah, that was great.
Another one that I would put and I almost actually went with is even though it was a very brief and short return, and he mostly just rode an ATV and then wrestled Eric Bischoff, Austin's return in 2002, which I don't even actually think was in our bracket. The pop when the glass shatter hit was something special, and it really only led to the Austin and Bischoff, whatever that was, at SummerSlam, and then a lot of like GM work type stuff. But that initial glass shatter was one of, but I think that lends more to Austin than the return, if that makes sense, right? Like Stone Cold is just that and has always been that over.
Yeah,
right?
For
Even
sure.
when he was week to week, the pops on the glass shatter and the song,
it's true.
It never gets old.
Every time that song hit, you would get a pop every single time.
I got goosebumps right now talking about it.
I mean, the other one as well, a other one, and this is, I think, for me on a much more personal level than everybody else. But it's not one of the best returns ever, and I'm not claiming it is, but it's one of my favorite ones. Seth Rollins' Extreme Rules 2016, because it was when I just got back into wrestling. I just got back into wrestling as soon as Seth got hurt. So I hadn't actually seen Seth Rollins as like a top guy yet, but I just heard the rumblings about him. I went back and watched his stuff. I was just so hyped to see him return. I started the Wrestling Republic page the day before the pay-per-view, and I did like a fancy booking thing speculating his return, and I didn't think it was going to happen. We of course saw that amazing match between Roman Reigns and AJ Styles at that show, And then just to end the show, Seth Rollins returns, and the crowd just went crazy for it. So that one was up there for me too. Bit of an underrated one. In the comments here, we got Soul saying he thinks either Bray at Extreme Rules or Edge at the Rumble. Bray, I mean,
Bray at
that's
Extreme
obviously
Rules is amazing.
Another great one as well. And Bobby Petito says Randy Orton at Survivor Series in 2023 or Chelsea Green at the Royal Rumble in 2023. I mean, that's definitely a rogue shout, but I like it. I really, really do. But now let's move on and let's talk about TV ratings. But don't worry, guys. Don't worry. I'm not on about the 18 to 49 key demographic. I'm not on about how many millions AEW or WWE gets per week. I'm on about the ratings of, the TV show itself. In this case, TV 14, because at It's Me Protique on Instagram is asking, will WWE ever be TV 14 again? And my answer to this is, I don't think so, because why would it be? You'd lose money, barely improves the product, little, if at all, to be completely honest here. I mean, like AEW's TV 14, how many things did they do, which are TV 14, which, we think to ourselves, hang on, if WWE did this, it would be better? Very few things, I'd say. It just doesn't make sense. Sponsorship wise, you lose money. Why would they? Clark, what are your thoughts on it?
I love this question, and I hate to be this guy. Dang it, because I love the question so much. The answer, unfortunately, is no. It will never be TV 14 again. It doesn't make sense for WWE to be TV 14 again. Do I wish it was? Absolutely. WWE under the TV 14 rating was at its finest in some ways and at its worst in others. But WWE under TV 14 allowed you for creative freedom in a way that WWE under TV PG does not. Now, I do understand that TV 14 implies that if you're under 14, you can't watch the show. And a large portion of the audience is, guess what, under 14. So that's not likely in the cards, but a show here or there. I mean, don't get me wrong. I grew up watching the TV 14 product well under 14 in the 90s and early 2000s. Like, I'm not that old. I'm only 32, guys. And so in 98, I was watching the TV 14 product with my parents. Parental supervision, finger quotes. Shout out mom and dad. Love you guys. But right, like, it is what it is when it comes to that. I wish that was possible in 2023 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7. It likely isn't. A show here or there, something, if there was going to be another version of almost like an ECW type tribute show, something like that you could do as a one-off and promote as a one-off and bill as TV 14, that would be amazing. Or you'd have to probably do that on pay-per-view or on Peacock. It likely wouldn't make sense on cable, but TV 14 on cable television, I unfortunately have to say will never happen again. But it was a beautiful time.
I mean, here's the thing. How many things do you reckon, if it was TV 14 that they did then, would they do now, even if it was TV 14? Because a lot of those great things you're talking about, those great moments, they couldn't do because of safety reasons nowadays.
Blood, I would love to have back on television. That's not that hard. I don't mind them saying the B word or the A word or even the S word on television. That doesn't hurt my feelings. As an adult dude that watches it, I would say that it's more intriguing the more emotion and passion there is, and real life people talk like that. I mean, you look at, actually, the irony is the only example I'd point to that shows a little bit of the tide swinging, which would give it a shot, just playing devil's advocate here too, because I truly don't believe that this will be the case. But if you look at the Pat McAfee show, there's the disclaimer on it. Now that they work for ESPN, and they're allowed to curse on ESPN on cable. They're a TV 14 show on ESPN, a gigantic network, for 3 hours a day. They're allowed to say A, B, and S, no Fs, and nothing crazier than that, right? But they're allowed to say those words. and they take advantage and do so. And that show's ratings has not dipped in any way. It is off the charts. And if you read their disclaimer, it says, we apologize for cursing, but this is how regular people talk. And there is a truth in that. And that people do curse, adults do curse. And
my mom always says
hiding from children those words, but that's how adults talk. And when we're talking about storytelling, which is my favorite part of wrestling, if it gets deep and a curse word slips, I'm not offended by that in any way. And I wouldn't be offended showing a niece or nephew of mine or a kid that for the one word and explaining that it's wrong to use that word, but the emotions are so deep because we do the same thing with movies. That's why we rate movies as well.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. My mum always says, if you swear, that's a lack of vocabulary. No. Clearly, Pat McAfee needs to take some advice from my mum there. Needs to, wash his mouth out with some soap. Needs to, claims he's the best podcast host in the world and can't do a podcast without swearing. I think that that role, quite frankly, I think you're a better podcast host at that rate, Clark. But let's now move on and let's talk with somebody who likes TV14, and that is Matt Cardona, because Matt Cardona is the next question asked by at Bobby B910, otherwise known as Bobby Ratito, who is asking, if Matt Cardona does come back to WWE, then who should he wrestle against? Well, I'm gonna mix up this question just a little bit more and word it as, will he return to WWE? And if he does, then who should he feud with, at least first? Anthony, what are your thoughts?
Hasn't he been rumored to return for the past 3 Rumbles at this point?
He's been rumored to return for the last 293 Raws.
Yeah, so granted, his wife is now there, so there is a greater chance of his return. Whether or not he's Zack Ryder or Matt Cardona, he says he wants to be Cardona. We'll see if that sticks. I think it depends on how they bring him in. If they're bringing him in as a babyface, then I could see him going against maybe his old buddy The Miz, because they're friends outside the ring, and Miz has no problem losing to him. If they're going to bring him in and do some momentum behind him, they could also do Nakamura at some point, depending upon when he comes in. As a heel, I'd put him against Kevin Owens or something like that. I mean, you could put him in there with Gunther, claiming I'm the real greatest Intercontinental Champion, even though he held it for 24 hours. But if he goes in there against Gunther, he is going to be fed to Gunther. There's no way Cardona is pulling the upset, in my opinion. I don't see him beating him. I mean, unless the company really wanted to get behind Cardona, and that would be a momentum swing in his direction to do that, because his hiatus from the company, he's certainly a bigger star now than I think he was when he left. At least for the hardcore wrestling audience, the ones that are just WWE watching, they'll be like, oh, where's he been? Is he retired? They're not going to, I don't think they're going to make the connection. So it'll be interesting seeing what they do with him. I don't see him coming in just to come in. I think he's comfortable wrestling on the indies. If they're not offering him something that he's comfortable with, I don't think he's coming in. So I think that'll be the deciding factor. Now, a one-off in the Rumble is certainly possible, because that, we've seen that before. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with it, whether they bring him in as a face or a heel.
No, that's a great point. One thing I'd love, if he is going to come in as Matt Cardona, if that's what he's insisting, I'd love it if they brought him in as Zack Ryder, and then he goes, no, I've gotten rid of that name. I'm now Matt Cardona, the Indie King, and by Indie, it means that he's a free agent across all shows in WWE, and he's just refusing to sign a contract. Adam Pearce is trying to sign him, Nick Aldis is trying to sign him, Shawn Michaels is trying to sign him, and for 6 months, he just doesn't sign with anybody, has a few feuds, and he just does the exact gimmick he's currently doing, but in WWE as an independent guy, I guess.
It could be interesting the next couple of months, because Cardona obviously is out there as a free agent. As it's been reported, one of Chelsea's best friends, Deonna Purrazzo, has finished up with Impact. Could she be coming? Like a lot of Chelsea's connections could be coming in, whether they form a group or they do something with that. It'd be interesting to see what happens if Deonna goes to WWE, AEW, somehow stays in TNA. Nobody knows, but she's like one of those free agents out there that people need to pay attention to because she does have talent. And I think it flies under the radar of, MJF, Okada, Osprey. And I'm not saying she's them, but out of the female talent that we know that's out there, she's the biggest name.
Yeah. I do with her though, because of her wrestling style, I love her. I just don't know. Like, I feel like she'd just be stuck in the mid card in WWE, like the Candice LeRae type role, and she's just so much better than that. That I kind of would like her to maybe stay in Impact, or kind of stay in Impact. To be honest with you, TNA now, because I mean that it really is perfect for her because she's just had so many bangers there, hasn't she?
That's the thing. She is a phenomenal talent. I would like her to stay in TNA, but if she went to WWE playing the virtuoso, the heel character, that could be a boost to the WWE women's division if they're using her. Like realistically, you think about her, you think of Jade. We're going to get the Jade. Those are two pretty big influxes to spice up the division a little.
Yeah, absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. I mean, if she does sign, they should make her a top star. She has that potential, undoubtedly. It's just sometimes you hear names go into WWE and you just don't think, for whatever reason, you just don't get that feeling that they're going to connect with that audience. And that's what I'm worried about. Hopefully I'm wrong, because I'd love to see her, on weekly TV in WWE each and every single week as a top star, because you are right, she has that talent. But let's continue talking about talent, and let's talk about two of the most talented guys in this business, in Kenny Omega and CM Punk, because at Matlock IUEDE is asking who's the best overall wrestler, in-ring, mic, storytelling, etc., CM Punk or Kenny Omega? Well, this question is certainly going to upset a lot of people. It's going to cause a lot of controversy. So, Brett, good luck.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I think that this question has multiple layers, and it's going to be hard for me to answer, to be honest with you, in a few sentences, because we could sit here and talk about this the entire episode if we really wanted to. But these people, comparing them, they're two completely different wrestlers when it comes to on mic, in ring, everything. Like storytelling, pretty much the whole shebang. They are completely different. This needs a lot of analyzing, and I don't know if I can really quantify how to go about this, but I'm going to go ahead and try. Okay. If we're going to go right now, obviously Kenny's the better wrestler in ring. He always, in my opinion, will be a better wrestler in ring, talent wise. Yes. Punk has his own, they're different styles, and Punk has his own great style for when he was younger in the ring as well. But I just still think Kenny is one of the best of all time in ring talents. When it comes to on mic, Punk all day. There's no question about it. So now if you go ahead and combine the two, I would have to say, if we're going to go all time and not just right now, I would have to go with Punk, unfortunately.
Ooh,
I don't want to go,
choice of words.
I love Omega. I love him. I'm a huge Omega guy. I just think that Punk, the mystique to it, he's the black sheep. Like there's a lot of layers to what Punk does, and you saw it this past Friday on SmackDown where he created 4 feuds in one night with a 10-minute promo. So that's the power that what he could do on the mic, and it shows on TV and in person, obviously, but at the same time, this question is the hardest question. You can't go about it any other way.
I wasn't even the one who did that camera cut.
Hey, I
right?
thought
I'm
I was
so
getting
sorry.
cut off like the Grammys for a second. I was gonna be like,
No.
hey, take it.
I owe everyone an apology.
Oh, Clark.
I'm so sorry.
Unacceptable.
That was such a mess up.
That's my answer. It's hard to quantify that answer, honestly, but I really do think if we're going to go all-time CM Punk, if we're going to go best wrestler, I would have to say Kenny Omega, but present Kenny, past CM Punk, but overall CM Punk.
Oh, I agree with you. In ring, Kenny Omega; on the mic, CM Punk. Overall, CM Punk in terms of history combined. Present, I actually think maybe it's a bit closer than that as the overall package. But I mean, to be honest with you, I think you described it quite well. It really is just even, quite even at this point in their careers. But now, let's talk about somebody else who's jumped ship, because of course, not only has CM Punk, Phil Brooks, recently jumped from AEW to WWE, but so has Jade Cargill. And at Papicito_G is asking, do you think it's possible for Jade Cargill to make history with a Royal Rumble debut win? I'd love this. I absolutely would. But I do not think it's going to happen. But what about you, Brett?
No, I don't think it's going to happen at all. But yes, and yes, I want this. I just want to see it. I want to see something new. I want to see Jade on TV. I want to see her wrestling, and I want to see her winning, most importantly, as well, too. Like, she was the top talent in AEW. They brought her over to WWE for a reason. Let's go ahead and continue this and keep the ball rolling rather than like stop and lose traction. Because once you stop and lose traction, then the people start forgetting who you were. And I believe that it makes so much sense for her to maybe not win it, but at least be in the final four that are maybe the last four standing in the ring at the Rumble.
Oh, yes, I agree with that one. I really, really do. For her to maybe even for her to enter at like 1 or 2 and then go all the way to the end, the final 4, and then she gets eliminated by somebody who then put her up against at WrestleMania, maybe Charlotte Flair. That's the match everybody, I think, wants to see, if Charlotte Flair is, healthy enough for that one. But I mean, Anthony, what about you? How are you feeling? Jade Cargill of Royal Rumble 2024, will it happen? What are your thoughts?
I don't think she wins. If she's in it, she's not winning it. I think it's very interesting. WWE really has stopped showing her. And I think a large part of that is, and I think a lot of people forget, she hasn't been doing this very long. And she was very limited in AEW. Even though they were pushing her, she really wasn't tested the way the spotlight is going to be on her in WWE. WWE invested a lot of money to bring her in because she has that undeniable X factor you can't teach. She's a star. You could tell she's got something. I think they are ensuring that when they bring her in, it matters and it lives up to the hype. So I don't believe she's going to win the Rumble. I don't even know if she's going to be in the Rumble. I'm not even sure she's going to the main roster right away. I think it depends on where they're going to go with it. I could see her doing a small run in NXT first. It depends on how much WWE wants her to improve before they bring her to Raw or SmackDown. I could easily see her going to NXT, having a run there, and then making a big deal about her getting drafted to the main roster during the next draft. And that's when to do it. Especially if Charlotte's injured. And that's the match people want, that or Bianca. But really, the Charlotte one is probably the main one they would want to do at 40 if they could. So I think that might be the best way to do it, is the fact, put her in NXT for just a little brief run and then kind of go from there.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a great point. Maybe you do just bring her, in now in NXT, have her going like a 20 match undefeated streak or something until May time, and then have her in the draft and have her drafted very high up as a top top prospect.
I think you could build it around her debut being at maybe like Stand and Deliver. It's WrestleMania weekend.
Okay.
Build it around there. That's her first match, under WWE. I think you can kind of run with that.
No, it'd be very, very interesting indeed. I mean, you mentioned it, Anthony. Of course, she was on TV a lot the last few, the first few weeks. They were really building her up. We haven't seen much of her since. Triple H has spoken about this, said that, she needs a bit of time to develop. He kind of hinted that maybe she wasn't seasoned at the level. Yeah, there we are. She wasn't seasoned enough as they expected her to be, and Triple H made it clear that he was not putting any of that blame on her. This. Fight. But no, it's honestly true. But I am excited to see her. I do love the NXT idea. The only thing I would say is, even if you did have her, go on a short undefeated streak, I do kind of worry that kind of takes some of the shine off, like that debut when she goes to the main roster. If you just debut her in the Royal Rumble, I think that initial pop might be a little better, considering she hasn't wrestled before.
No, and I agree with you, but you also don't want her exposed and she doesn't live up to that hype, because then that ruins the whole thing for her, and it's a wasted investment from WWE, because it's like, we paid how much, and this is patience may be the best course of action here.
That's depending
upon what they want.
Yeah. No, it's a great point. Honestly, you don't want to just come in and start botching and all of that stuff. They obviously do not want that, and they want her to be able to have those top matches, the WrestleMania caliber matches. We got a couple of comments here. Firstly, Bobby Petito saying he thinks Bayley could win the Women's Royal Rumble and wrestle against Io Sky at Mania. Bobby, I agree with you, actually. I do very much agree with you there. But now, last but certainly not least, Clark. What about you? Obviously, you're an AEW mark, so you're going to claim that Jade Cargill is, now a traitor. She's betrayed everybody.
No.
Tony Khan should feel insulted. That's the reason AEW women don't get time anymore, all because of her.
I'm going to first apologize for messing up on the camera cut thing. My trackpad's been jamming. That one's on me. Second, I'm going to say that I really liked Bret's idea about her going deep in the Rumble, but not necessarily winning it and debuting there. I do not mind that in the least. I think it makes a ton of sense. Anthony's point, though, also about if she's green and whatnot, I get as well, and debuting her on NXT, I understand as well. But me personally, tracking her career since she debuted in AEW and understanding the connection with Shaquille O'Neal and where she came from, that wrestler who we saw the it factor with, the charisma, all of it, what she was when she finished her run with AEW, and we haven't seen her debut in WWE yet. The way I would say it is, I consider myself a gambler, and a pretty decent one. Nobody that's a gambler considers themselves a good one. That would be unfair. So if you're decent, you think you're good. I think I'm good at gambling. And you couldn't pay me to bet against Jade Cargill. She is that talented. She's that athletic. She's that good on the microphone. She's that good at every single thing she's touched has turned to gold. It's a fact. If you look at her career on television, she has not missed, outside of complaining about being a little green, one single time. She's got as much charisma as any woman that has entered the ring. She's got as much athleticism as any woman that's entered the ring in any company. And I have no doubts that if that is the plan to debut her at the Rumble, it will be not only done right, but given the amount of time between when the signing occurred and when the Rumble was going to happen, she will be not only ready, but given the professional that she is, on top of the charisma that she possesses, she will absolutely blow the crowd out of the water with whatever it is to win that Rumble, if that is the case. Do I think that's the plan? No. But the question is, do you think it's possible? Absolutely, I think it's possible. And not only do I think it's possible, I think it would go well. Because I believe in Jade Cargill that much.
No, I mean, honestly, you are not wrong. It's ironic you say that, she hasn't missed because, she's the only women in that AEW women's division to not have used missed, to be completely honest
She
there.
carried
But
it.
no.
She carried the division. She carried the women's division.
No, I mean, but she didn't
made the
use the
TBS belt
mist.
what it was. She has not missed.
Yeah, but she didn't use the mist either. And that's what using every women's storyline over there.
You're talking IST, not ISS.
Yeah.
Oh, da-dutch. You're in Mark Taylor's bag on that one.
It didn't land. It did not land. But
nice pun.
But in all seriousness, Clark, I do not disagree with a thing you said there. Jade Cargill, she is a great, great talent. And when she was under a lot of pressure either makes people crumble or it makes diamonds. In her case, it made a diamond in AEW. I thought, and I said it at the time, people were way too harsh on her there. Way too harsh on her there. Was she still a little green? Yes. Did she learn quicker than I think anybody other than Logan Paul has in recent wrestling history? Also, yes. So, truthfully, listen, if she's been training the last couple of months, whatever, in WWE, if she does come in, if she does win the Rumble, I would not bet against her either. I would not, and I do hope you are right there. But we got a couple of comments. Firstly, Shard, shout out to Shard, saying that Jade needs to get one of those titles out of the gate. I mean, I initially, to go back to what Anthony said, I originally thought when Jade came in, she was going to beat Becky Lynch for the NXT title in NXT in her debut. And looking back, maybe that wouldn't have been a bad idea, but hey, they obviously had different plans. Instead, I mean, Clark, in hindsight, would you have liked to see Becky drop the title to Jade, or was that just too early? And
I would not have minded that in the least. That would have been awesome to me. I think Jade's that good, and I mean, but the way that they played out the Becky storyline on NXT, I didn't mind with Lyra, Valkyria. Like, I enjoyed it, covering it on Off the Air. We had fun. It was a fun storyline. If you draw parallels with the main roster, it doesn't make as much sense. That's what's hard. Whereas in my eyes, had it been Jade, that would have been easier to quantify. Right? Like Jade Cargill came in and beat Becky Lynch, a fresh Jade Cargill who hasn't wrestled in a few months. Right. Whereas Lyra has been wrestling through the whole thing and battling her way too. But that story still was of high quality. So I don't necessarily think it's a miss in hindsight, right? Like, it's fine. And I don't know what Jade Cargill's backstage situation is or what the deal is. I think Jade Cargill versus Becky Lynch is going to be on a poster in the next 2 years. And I made a gambling reference earlier, but I'd bet a lot of money on that. That'll be on a marquee and on a poster and not very long.
Well, they couldn't really, I didn't mean to interrupt really quick, but they can't really just jump her up to the front. No offense.
Oh yeah.
Because that would just be like,
they could.
Obviously they could. Vince has done it a bunch of times. I'm not saying they wouldn't, but Hunter would not.
I don't know. Jade's physicality.
I think every wrestling book has done it.
I think Jade can jump. Jade's got to skip the line past.
When it comes to the division, her tenure, how long she's been in this industry and things like that, it's almost unfair just to put her where she is.
But see, I think wrestling's always been
not unfair. Right now. I'm not saying right now. I'm saying to like have her get like a title right now or win the Rumble. I just don't think that she's there just yet.
I don't know, man. Jade Cargill
she's amazing. Absolute. I love her. She's
look wise. You can stand Jade Cargill in a stare down with any woman in any promotion.
She just looking at her.
And Jade Cargill looks like she's going to be the one that wins the fight.
Yeah, for sure. I think
which is the basis of storytelling in pro wrestling. That's the thing that Jade possesses that not many do, right? She has the look in her eyes, the physicality, all of that, power. And the way that she stands on the other end of somebody else and looks at them, that alone, just the stare.
Okay,
right? But then she can talk as well.
You're telling me
muscles too.
You're telling me Tiffy time though doesn't compete with that.
No, she does. Dude, Tiffy Stratton is
Okay,
staring down.
so-
Jade's looking down like this.
But
And
that's the
Tiffany.
thing. There's levels to this, and
There is.
Jade's been wrestling longer than Tiffany Stratton.
I would
too,
put
by the way.
Jade
That's
ahead of
another
Tiffany Stratton.
actual
If that's the
interesting point.
conversation there.
The only
But-
reason I compared them is because it was good.
It's a good comparison.
It's actually a match I actually wouldn't mind seeing, and so would Bobby Petito too. So that's actually quite funny actually. But
Oh no, and Shoddy just admitted it here. He's the biggest Tiffany
I
Stratton
see,
mark
and
in the
he's a
world.
Tiffany Stratton mark.
Shout
He's
out,
saying
Shod.
Jade's the biggest star. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you watch this, then you're a star. Please like and subscribe on YouTube. Give us 5 of those stars on Spotify, and give us a follow on Twitch. It makes my day. It helps us so much. It really, really does. Thank you guys so much. We'll be back tomorrow for a Raw review, slightly later start time, 1:30 p.m. Pacific, 4:30 Eastern, 9:30 UK time. So we will see you guys then. Thank you, Clark. Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Anthony, for joining me here today. We will see you guys. Peace.